Okay, let me introduce all of you to your new best friend. So what happens is while your Stack Overflow will be your mentor, Vivek. So while you're developing, one is tracing on a piece of paper, but inside Visual Studio Code, there is a way that you can debug the code. Okay. So the thing that happens whenever you're writing code, especially we have a loop. Remember, this is what I told you, that when we run our code, either we get the output, which is a correct output or a wrong output, or there is an error and we do not know why that error is, in which iteration there was an error, and things like that. We don't have control over the inner working of our code. So whenever you're writing code, you can leverage the ability of debugging your code step by step. Now this gives you powers like Neo in Matrix, or like DiCaprio in Inception. In the same way, imagine that you have the similar kind of power that DiCaprio had in the movie while you're writing code. Would you be interested in acquiring that particular power? Stopping the code, pausing the code, and then you controlling, okay, do the next step, do the next step. Yes, let me show you how. So what happens is, right next to the numbers, you see these small red buttons. Okay, so these are something called as breakpoints. So they appear like the red lights in your traffic signal. So you can actually stop. So one way of doing it was console.log. That's what Sheetal was saying, or Sheetal is mentioning. Absolutely. So in console. You can always do a console.log and see what's happening. But again, there what happens, Sheetal, is if you have a loop, it just loops over the entire array or string, and then it shows you all those different number of consoles. But here I'll show you some really nice trick. So wherever you want to pause your code, let's say you're writing some code and you feel the logic is not correct or it's not behaving the way you want. You have an array, but you're not sure if all the elements are being accessed. You're creating an object, not sure whether the properties are being created in the right way or not. So these are all the kind of things that typically happens while you're developing code. So what you can do is you can add breakpoints like this. So wherever you want to stop your code's execution, just click there. I am over exaggerating right now by adding so many breakpoints just because I want to show you how to use it. But you, when you are quite comfortable with this tool, wherever you want to analyze, you just put a breakpoint. Okay, I'm just adding it for every single line just to demonstrate how all of this is going to work. Then what you can do is you can go to run and click on start debugging, and then you can choose Node.js as your environment. So as you can see, it does not give me an output, but it gives me this kind of lot of options where I can continue my code. It did not give me an output. I can continue my code. I can go back to the previous. I can go inside a function. I can step out from a function. A lot of really cool stuff you can do. But watch this. On the left hand side, it shows you all the variables within the scopes, block scope, in the global scope, local scope, what is the call stack like. But again, it's a little more advanced for you guys right now. Do not worry, you will get there very shortly. But under the watch section, you can actually start looking at your variables, like the value of I, what is the value of A. Oh, value of A, you can see it's an array. These are all the elements at indexes. This is the length property. What is the value B? It's basically 10. in this case, right? So what I can do is I can also not only look for variable values, but I can also perform the conditional checks here. What is it? I can do a dot length. What is a dot length? It is 5. What is I less than a dot length? That's what we're doing, right? I less than a dot length. Right now it still says false. So what's happening is when the line is highlighted, it means to say that this line is currently gonna get executed or interpreted. It does not mean that this line is executed already. It is now going to execute that particular line of code, because you might see that I is undefined. You might think that, hey, isn't I'm setting the value of 0. This yellow line indicates that this is the current line that is going to get executed now. It is not executed still. It's going to get executed now. So if you want to move forward, just click on this particular, you can either use F5 as the shortcut or just use this icon. Now what happens, you enter the loop. You can see that there is the block variable and stuff like that. Now you see the value of I is 0. 0 less than 5 is true. Hence you have entered the loop. I could also check what is the value of A of I. So what is the value of A of I? A of I is A of 0. What is the value of the 0th index? It is the value 1. So I can now check, is the value of A of I equal to the value B? What is happening? It is false. So my if condition is false. Now it comes to the else part. And then what are you doing? You're returning false. That's the reason the code came out. You never bothered going through the entire array. In your case, what had happened was you said that you were passing 3. Let's try this all over again. Start debugging. I'll choose Node.js. And all those variables and all, let it be the same. Okay, we'll do it. Now what is happening? A of I is 1. B is 3. It is false. Again, if false, it comes to the else part. And what are you doing? You're returning the value. You say return false. You come out. So now what has happened is, because you're writing the code this way, you're not even going on to check for the remaining elements within the array. Now you see how useful this particular tool becomes when it comes to debugging your code and the logic that you're writing. Remember, I was telling you about the special powers that DiCaprio had in the movie Inception? You also have it right now. The powers Neo had in Matrix, even you have it right now. So if you kind of do this, where you're supposed to return outside that particular function, let's start all over again. We enter the loop. A of I is 1. Is 1 equal to 5? False. That means to say it as if false. Then what happens? It will go back, increment the value of I. You can see the value of I change from 1. I is 0, it becomes 1 right now. You can see that the value of I got incremented. 1. 1 less than A dot length. A dot length is 5. 1 less than 5. It is true. A of 1 is what? The value at the first index, which is, you can see the value of the first index is 2. Is 2 equal to 3? False. So again, it is if false. You come to the end of the loop. You increment the value of I. I now becomes 2. Then what happens? A of I is 3. A of I is equal to B. It is true. That means to say our if condition is true. So you will enter the loop. You enter the loop, you'll enter the if condition for the very first time. You can see the code went inside the if condition. And then you're returning the value true from the given function. And then it returns true. Yeah, I hope this was useful for all of you. This is a useful little tool. Yeah, so this will have a huge impact when you're solving exercises and assignments. Cool, very nice.